Rajeev Agrawal is with us now, Managing Partner and Fund Manager at Doordarshi India Fund. Rajeev, good to have you with us here. Good morning. Thanks very much. The news flow continues to be a little muddy with everything which is happening around the world. But there's a new element of the sell-off in the US. What's your sense, Rajeev? What are you picking up? Are we going to have to deal with the US markets also coming off a little bit more?
Good morning, Prashant. So on the US markets, I do think that the US markets have been at an elevated level. And so I think some pullback from here is, in our mind, a good thing because, markets in US ran up 25% last year and another 25% plus in 2023. And so if we look at from a price to earnings or many other factors, they were very elevated. I think what has started happening now is as the Trump actions start biting, the people are realizing that maybe they have taken the market too high. And so I think there is some pullback because of that. What will happen from here? I think it will much more depend on what the policy measures are, because if some of the tariffs do come into existence, then there will be a lot more inflation, yields will be higher, and that may actually depress the stock prices.
Rajeev, when we spoke to you at the start of the new year, you were quite bullish on India and you were looking at opportunities to buy. Now, while since then, we've had quite a gut-wrenching fall in the Indian market. So what has been your approach in the last one and a half months?
So I think we are nibblers, Reema, and that is what we like to do. I think these markets are giving us opportunities to buy. And so we are buying, but obviously we have limited capital, so we have to recycle our capital, get out of some other stocks and get into new stocks. And so that's really what our approach has been. I think definitely this pullback has created a lot of opportunities, and you have to then pick your spots and act.
Tell us about, which stocks you've exited, which stocks you've entered in.
Yeah, so actually we have not exited any particular stock as such, but I think where we find that on a relative basis, if we find that something has been fully priced, then we are happy to start selling those and start getting into new ones. So, I mean, I think in terms of where we are looking, clearly banking has been a sector that we have been interested in. And, a new stock that I will say, though we have not necessarily bought it, but we are researching right now is Federal Bank. I think I saw that you will have Maniam later in the session, and he recently presented the approach of the bank and how he looks to grow the bank and define his new strategy for the next few years. Coming from Kotak, I'm sure he will add a lot of value to the bank.
Okay, all right. Hi, Rajeev. Good morning and good to see you. And Rajeev, what about your interactions, with all your clients and other foreign money that you manage? What is your sense? Suddenly China seems to be back in the game. Till maybe a few months ago, India was the only game in town. How do you see things shaping up? What's the kind of interest levels for the Indian markets? Because suddenly mood has got very, very somber out here from being the only game in town. It appears we're not top of the pops. Tell us.
Yeah, no, so you're absolutely right, Nigel. I think earlier China was becoming uninvestable. Now, as I talk to many people, they're saying, well, China is so cheap that we can start wading back into the Chinese market. And I think some of the earnings results from some of those tech companies have started doing well. So clearly China, people are starting to wade in. On the India side, on the other hand, the earnings were quite weak in the last few quarters, as we all know. And so given the valuations and given where the earnings are, those are the two reasons which I think has caused people to pull out from India and start looking at China. The other thing, which is definitely a big factor, is that US yields have been elevated. And so I think there is a lot of money that was coming into the US and coming out of all emerging markets. But I think within emerging markets, there is this rebalancing that is going on.
Well, a lot going on, right? And I think we'll have to wait it out. By the way, I don't know, on Friday, there was an executive order which was signed in the US. It kind of got missed. It's called America First. If you parse through it, it's really detailed. The scope is vast. It's all mostly directed towards China. Limiting their investment in US, things like limiting investment in US farmland. Passive stakes are okay, no majority control, no board seats, and it's very sweeping. And on the other hand, there are sort of publications like the New York Times talking about a trade deal, broader trade deal with the US, which then makes you think, well, are they softening their stand? So it's up in the air in that sense where this is really going to go. But Rajeev, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us and appreciate your time here on CNBC TV 18.